At first, it was steady, a faint radio echo buried beneath cosmic noise, pulsing every 41 seconds like a heartbeat from beyond the solar system. Then, it shifted. The frequency spiked by 0.003 Hz. Then it stopped altogether. Telescopes across 3 continents caught the silence. And then, a new pulse appeared. Different wavelength, different origin vector. It wasn't supposed to change. Interstellar objects don't talk back. But this one did. Why did it shift? Was it interference? Instrument error? Or did something out there alter the transmission? And if so, who or what is sending it now? Every interstellar visitor tells us something about the universe beyond our reach. But this time, the message changed mid-flight. It began quietly. July 2025. A faint streak across an automated survey image captured by the Atlas telescope in Hawaii. At first, it looked routine, another near-Earth object, faint and fast-moving. But when orbital models were run, the data didn't fit. This was no comet born of our sun. Its speed, too high. Its path, too open. Its composition, too cold. Designation, 3I Atlas. The third known visitor from beyond our solar system, after Oumuamua and Borisov. But 3I was different. It wasn't just passing through, it was broadcasting. At first, astronomers thought the readings were random, stray reflections from ionized dust. But over weeks, the pattern repeated, consistent across instruments. A rhythmic emission that matched no known natural radio source in that region. The signal sat near the hydrogen line, a frequency long associated with cosmic communication research. Coincidence or design? By September, 3I Atlas had crossed the orbit of Mars, inbound toward the inner system. That's when the frequency wavered, a measurable deviation in the hydrogen band. Not random static, but structured change. And when researchers requested extended observation time, one agency suddenly locked the data archive. Official explanation: calibration maintenance. But that was the same week the signal shifted again. Coincidence or correlation? Because if the object is interstellar and the emission is real, then this may be the first time something beyond our star system changed its signal after being detected. What caused that change? Natural process? Instrument artifact? Or was 3I Atlas responding to something? Perhaps to us. To understand what that means, we have to look deeper, into the system itself. The sensors, the frequencies, the patterns that whisper just beneath the noise floor. The signal wasn't loud. In fact, it hovered just above the noise floor, a whisper in the static of deep space. But to those who knew where to listen, it stood out like a pulse inside chaos. The first confirmation came from a distributed array, 18 dishes spread across 2 hemispheres. Their task: track transient radio phenomena from near-Earth space to the edge of interstellar darkness. Normally, they catalog flare stars, pulsars, or the dying cries of supernovae. But this time, they caught something different. At 1420 megahertz, the hydrogen line, the data showed coherent modulation. Not random spikes, not cosmic background. A pattern. Structured. Repeating. Like a coded heartbeat. Some thought it might be intermodulation, 2 natural signals overlapping. Others suggested a local artifact, ground radar bleeding into the feed. But when the signal was isolated, filtered, and reconstructed, it appeared to contain harmonic layers. Frequencies stacked in mathematical ratios, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8. Simple, almost intentional sequences. Here's why that matters. In physics, harmonic ratios don't emerge from noise. They come from resonance systems, something vibrating, oscillating, or transmitting. So the question wasn't if the signal was real, it was what kind of system could produce it. Analysts modeled the emission as a possible rotational beacon, a burst generated as 3I Atlas spins and sunlight interacts with charged debris. But the rotation rate didn't match. The pulse period stayed constant even as the object's spin slowed, as if the source of the signal were independent of its motion. So if it wasn't the surface, was it the core? Could an internal process, crystallization, volatile outgassing, a magnetic alignment, create such precision? Models say no. Cometary magnetic fields are too weak. Thermal vents too chaotic. No known natural mechanism produces such consistent timing at the hydrogen frequency over months. And yet, the signal persisted until September when it changed. The shift wasn't random. It was smooth, gradual, like someone tuning a dial. Every model broke. Instrument calibration, checked. Solar interference, absent. Human-made reflection, impossible. No transmitter anywhere near the path. So what was left? Some scientists began whispering about an idea once considered fiction, that 3I Atlas might not be just a rock, but a relic. A fragment of technology adrift between stars. The more they studied the mechanism, the less natural it looked. But to verify it, they'd need more time, and by then, someone had already cut the feed. At 2:17 UTC, a technician monitoring routine calibration noticed something off. A narrow spike rising where the background should have been flat. He stared for a moment, expecting it to vanish. It didn't. He saved the log, marked it for review. No alarms, no headlines, just another data artifact. Or so he thought. 2 hours later, that same pattern appeared at a second array, half a planet away. Identical timing, identical modulation, from the same coordinates, 3I Atlas. What began as a technical curiosity became something stranger. Operators started trading encrypted emails, screenshots, frequency graphs, timestamps. At first, quiet excitement, then unease. The rules were clear. All telemetry flowed to central servers under routine non-disclosure. But someone leaked an anonymized spectrum file to an independent astrophysics forum. Within hours, amateur analysts confirmed the modulation wasn't random. It carried mathematical ratios, the same ones being logged in classified archives. The reaction inside the network was immediate. Access restrictions tightened, login tokens expired, and the team, the small handful who had tracked the anomaly, were told to stand down. One researcher described the moment in her notes. "It's like the signal knew we were watching." The shift happened right after the extended scan request. Almost deliberate, she wasn't claiming consciousness, only awareness. As if the transmission adjusted in response to observation. A feedback loop, observer and observed. No official statement followed. No press release. The internal chatter stopped overnight. But in that silence, a pattern emerged. Private recordings, screenshots, personal logs, pieces of a story that the public never saw. Each of them, in their own words, described the same feeling. Not fear, not wonder. Something colder. Imagine you're the first to hear a voice. Not human, not natural. Echoing across billions of kilometers. And then, it changes, as if replying to you. What would you feel? Awe, terror, or the weight of realizing you've just crossed a threshold no one prepared for? The people closest to 3I Atlas say they didn't find a message. They found a mirror, something that reflected the act of listening itself. But this was only the beginning. Because what happened next would challenge every explanation, from physics to probability. When the signal changed, the debate ignited overnight. 3 possibilities emerged, each one plausible and deeply flawed. The natural hypothesis. The first theory, a natural emission. As interstellar comets approach the sun, volatile ice boils away, releasing charged gas. Those ions spiral along magnetic lines, creating radio bursts, random, chaotic, short-lived. But 3 Atlas's emission wasn't random. It pulsed, steady intervals, perfect ratios. Even when its rotation slowed, the signal did not. Every known outgassing model failed to reproduce the precision. So the natural model explained some of the noise, but not the mathematics buried inside it. Was it coincidence? Or something guiding the chaos into order? The artificial hypothesis. The second theory, the one few dared to say aloud, proposed that 3I Atlas might be a fragment of technology, a derelict probe, a transmitter built long before our sun formed. Supporters pointed to the hydrogen line, 1,420 megahertz, the frequency once proposed by SETI as a universal hailing channel. Why would a random object broadcast there? And then, the shift, a controlled frequency drift, as if the sender were compensating for motion. That requires calculation, correction, intent. Skeptics countered immediately. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. Where was the modulation pattern, the message, the encoding? No data block, no syntax, no content, only rhythm. If it was a beacon, it was one designed to be noticed, not to communicate. A flare, not a conversation. But why send a flare into a galaxy of silence? Was 3I Atlas a message? Or a memorial? The error hypothesis. The third theory tried to pull the mystery back to Earth. Instrumental error, data contamination, an echo produced by the network's own processing. Every large array merges signals from multiple antennas. If one clock drifts, even by milliseconds, the interference can mimic modulation. A digital mirage. Audits were conducted, logs reviewed. No clock drift, no miscalibration, no shared interference path. Still, the possibility lingered. What if the anomaly existed only in our reconstruction? A ghost of our algorithms, a pattern born of our own desire to find meaning in static. Each theory explained part of the evidence, but none explained all. The pattern was too deliberate to be noise, too structureless to be language, too persistent to be thermal, too faint to be controlled. So what happens when science runs out of explanations? When the data defies both reason and randomness? Do we expand our models or our imagination? Because just as the debate reached its peak, a new dataset surfaced, privately shared, unverified, and it changed everything. It arrived without warning, a small encrypted archive, time-stamped 3 days after the official shutdown of the Atlas signal feed. No sender, no signature, just a single file name, Atlas Rephased 09XZIP. The data was raw, unfiltered, multiple spectrographs aligned, not by telescope, but by time. The leak suggested that someone inside the monitoring network had already begun recombining the fragments, searching for something the official analysis had missed. When the channels were synchronized, something strange happened. The noise flattened, the harmonics aligned, and a new pulse emerged, one hidden beneath the old. But this time, the pulse wasn't singular. It was double. Two frequencies, phasing in and out, locked in opposition like mirrored tones. It matched the precise frequency drift that had puzzled scientists for weeks. Except here, it appeared intentional. To anyone else, it looked like art, geometry drawn in static. But to those who recognized the ratios, 3 to 5 to 8, it looked familiar. Fibonacci, self-similar, fractal, patterns known to appear in living systems and engineered designs. Was it coincidence? Or a blueprint, a message written not in words, but in mathematics? A small group of independent analysts began reconstructing the data. Their goal, to convert the signal into audio. If it was encoded, perhaps it could be heard. The result? A series of rising and falling tones, repeating every 11 minutes, the same period during which the official record shows the frequency deviation. When amplified, the tones formed intervals eerily similar to human speech harmonics. Not words, but phrasing. A pause, a reply. A pause again. That pattern was enough to spark a new theory. What if the signal's shift wasn't random, but reactive? If 3I Atlas's emissions changed immediately after we transmitted radar pings to map its surface, then perhaps what we called an object was, in some sense, listening. The leak included one more file, a short log entry from an untraceable source. Frequency shift began 4.7 seconds after outbound radar burst. Correlation, 0.99. Recommend cessation of active transmissions until further analysis. If true, it suggests the impossible. That 3i Atlas reacted in real time. And just as quickly as it appeared, the archive vanished. Links dead, mirrors offline. The leak erased as though it had never existed. But the data's brief existence left one undeniable trace. An idea that couldn't be deleted. If the signal changed when we called out, then maybe it's waiting for us to speak again. And if that's true, the next move is ours. Within 72 hours of the leak, something shifted. Not in space, but here on Earth. Data access privileges were frozen, email threads archived, and one directive appeared across every connected node. Operational silence, level 3. No explanation, no clarification. Just the silence of a system closing in on itself. Publicly, nothing changed. The official tracking site still showed 3i Atlas on its predictable inbound path. Velocity nominal, signal inactive, everything normal. Except, the observatories that once shared live data suddenly stopped publishing. Behind the scenes, calls were made, meetings scheduled at off hours, and somewhere inside an agency meeting minutes, a single line appeared. Cold, bureaucratic, but unmistakable. Containment protocol for extraterrestrial emission event. Phase 0 initiated. Containment, not confirmation, not denial, containment. Those who had worked on the original analysis began receiving transfer notices. One day's access revoked, the next reassigned. Some quietly resigned, others simply stopped showing up. In one internal memo, later leaked, a department head wrote, "We need time to evaluate implications before uncontrolled dissemination." Implications. That single word said what no one dared to say aloud. They didn't know what it meant, and they were afraid to find out too quickly. A handful of independent researchers kept working in secret, sharing snippets of the lost archive, cross-referencing the phasing tones, searching for a pattern too deliberate to ignore. One of them noticed something strange. The shifted signal, the one thought to have ended, wasn't gone. It was echoing. Buried deep inside the noise floor, just above the detection limit, a new pulse appeared. Slower, fainter, and slightly retuned. Not 1420 MHz, 1420.003. Exactly the offset recorded in the final transmission before the shutdown. Some interpreted it as confirmation, proof the object had heard us. Others saw it as coincidence, an echo of the instruments themselves. But no one could deny the timing. The echo began just hours after operational silence was ordered. What do you do when data and secrecy collide? When science becomes classified? When the act of listening itself is considered dangerous? The decision was made quietly. No press release, no countdown. The arrays that had heard the anomaly were switched to passive mode. No active radar, no transmissions, no reply. The message was simple. If something is out there, stop calling it. But silence, too, is an answer, and sometimes it's the loudest one. Array status, stand by. Next transmission window, 46 days. And so the world waited, listening, quietly, for a signal that might never return. After the leak disappeared, the world returned to routine. No official statements, no briefings, only a line in an internal bulletin. Anomalous readings under review. But among those who'd heard the rephased tones, who'd seen the harmonics lock and shift, silence felt heavier than denial. Because silence, in science, is not emptiness. It's data withheld. If the correlation was real, if 3i Atlas altered its emission seconds after our radar ping, then this wasn't a passive object drifting through our system. It was an interaction, a dialogue measured in light seconds. But how do you respond to something that doesn't speak, only mirrors? Do you send another pulse? Do you risk awakening what you don't understand? Because if it's listening, then it already knows we're here. Every transmission humanity has ever made, every broadcast, every radar sweep, has been carving our signature into the void for nearly a century. We've been calling into darkness, assuming no one would answer. But now, for the first time, something may have blinked back. So what happens if 3i Atlas isn't just passing through? What if it's scanning, mapping the noise, recording the replies? Or worse, what if it was always meant to be found, and the signal change wasn't a malfunction, but an acknowledgement? The latest orbital models suggest a slight deceleration, insignificant by celestial standards, but enough to raise one impossible question. What force is slowing it down? No jets, no outgassing, no visible interaction, just drag where no atmosphere exists. If the object is responding, it's doing so in a language we can't yet read, a dialect of mathematics, resonance, and timing. The cosmos may already be speaking. We just don't know which part of it is the question and which part is the answer. So what do we do now? Do we send another signal, risk being heard again? Or do we go quiet and hope the silence will protect us? If 3i Atlas came from somewhere, someone, then the next object may not just listen. It may arrive expecting a reply. And if that happens, the question won't be whether they are out there. It'll be whether we are ready to answer.